What's going on, everybody? It's DanBeforeTime. So today we're going to look at the brand new free-to-play Battle Royale from Boss Key Studios. Now, Boss Key Studios is headed by Cliff Bleszinski. He and they are responsible for the arena/hero shooter called Lawbreakers, which was pretty widely viewed as a failure due to its inability to retain its player base. Now, we may or may not touch on Lawbreakers again a little bit later in this video, but the purpose of this video is to kind of give you guys my first impressions and let you know whether I think this game is really worth your time and if I think it has a future in the very crowded and always getting more crowded Battle Royale scene. So the first thing that's going to come up naturally, and you'll probably start seeing these videos today even, is Radical Heights a Fortnite killer or is it a PUBG killer? And I just want to put that to bed right away. This game, smartly, I believe, is not trying to directly compete with those two games. Of course, it's a Battle Royale, so it is competing in a certain sense with all Battle Royale games, but this, I don't believe, is targeting the audiences of either of those games specifically, but it does have crossover from both games. And let me try to explain that a little bit. I think this is more of a niche game, and I think that is a good thing and a smart direction to go. Fortnite at this point is kind of the COD of Battle Royales. It's easy to pick up and play. It does have a skill gap, but it's not. It's a very casual game. PUBG, on the other hand, is kind of like the cool older uncle at this point, and that happened rather quickly. Fortnite was able to come out with this incredibly polished AAA experience, and it was free to play, and it came out right at the right time when the shooter market kind of needed a jolt, and it came to console, so Fortnite took over really fast. This is not... Radical Heights is not going to directly challenge Fortnite, even though it is free to play, and I think that's very smart as well. So it kind of has the goofiness of Fortnite, but not so extreme. You don't have the building element at all, and it has kind of the slower paced, more tactical shooting of PUBG, which I actually kind of like that mix a little bit more. I played a lot of Fortnite. I've played probably about 140 to 150 hours of Fortnite. Really have enjoyed my time with that game, but at this point there's so many people playing it that I don't always feel like pounding a Mountain Dew and getting Dorito dust all over my keyboard every night. So this was kind of a nice change of pace for me. But it also doesn't take itself quite as seriously as PUBG does, and it definitely doesn't have all those bugs that PUBG does either. It's a janky experience, and they actually say that right on the title screen. They call extreme early access, and you're gonna see that, but I didn't run into any game-breaking bugs in my time, and I spent probably around 2.5 to 3 hours playing the game before I did this video. And when I talk about this being a niche game, I'm talking more thematically. It's very much going for an 80s, a mid to early 80s TV show vibe. And that's going to have an automatic appeal to a very specific age group. And frankly, that's my age group, mid 30s to mid 40s. People that grew up in the 80s and remember this. Like, this was a nostalgia blast for me because everything was like this in the 80s on TV. It's like super intense action, the colors, it's phenomenal as far as the nostalgia goes. I'm hoping they have a skating rink in the game. I haven't found that yet, but that would be really cool because that would just take me straight back to my childhood. So it's going to be really interesting for me to see whether like the younger generation picks this up and thinks it's like so throwback that it's cool, or if they're just not going to get the references at all. Luckily, the gameplay is solid enough to give the fan of the Battle Royale pretty much what they're used to and what they're looking for. So let's talk a little bit about the gameplay. First of all, I want to tell you that it's going to take a few matches before you get the hang of what's going on. It has some different mechanics and some different systems from most Battle Royales. And one thing that I really think is cool is the addition of in-game currency. There's kind of a meta game that goes on behind the actual Battle Royale part. So you are actually in a game show as you're playing this game. Like, you're on a game show set, you're on a TV set. That's why everything looks kind of flat and fake. And sometimes you run into walls that don't have buildings behind them. It's all very cool. A lot of people are going to say right off the bat, this looks cheap and this looks unfinished, and it's definitely on purpose the way that the art style is done. So getting back on track, being that it is a game show, the main or one of the main goals is to win as much cash as you can. The cool thing about cash in this game is that it's persistent throughout your play experience. So for instance, say you get $600 and you die, a portion of that $600 is going to carry over to your bank that you have as a player. With this money, you can buy items in the game from different vending machines. They have health vending machines, equipment vending machines, weapon vending machines. It's a really cool system. It takes a while, like I said, to get used to. And initially, because you're working and you're basically grinding matches to get your bank build up, it creates kind of a grind at first and a little bit of a disadvantage because you're not going to be able to go to vending machines right away with your persistent cash and buy the top tier weapons. Another really cool thing that they have implemented is ATMs. I don't know if they're random or if they stay spawned in the same place every time, but basically you can either deposit or withdraw $100 at a time to your persistent stash of money. So if it's kind of a risk versus reward situation where if you have, I had a couple matches where I dropped in right away and got like $2,000, and I was looking for a ATM so I could deposit some of it but still have enough to buy gear. So it creates like this, like I said, this really cool metagame where you're trying to stack cash as much as possible but still keeping enough to keep yourself safe and buy gear to be able to compete. And of course, you can also use the cash outside of the game in the lobby to buy cosmetic items, which is a big portion of this game, I think, is going to be cosmetics and making yourself look unique with all these just totally radical 80s inspired clothes. And they're going to have everything from like action heroes to skaters. It's and BMX racers. I love it as an 80s kid. I absolutely love that part of it. So the cash system definitely sets this game apart and makes it unique. And the other thing that I really like is the way that they handle the zone or the storm or the gas or whatever it's called. Instead of doing a circle that just shrinks continuously towards the middle and that gets very, very predictable, it has almost these little sectors on the map, like little tiny squares. You can see it in the mini map in the top right-hand corner. And some of them become yellow, and that's like caution, these are about to turn red. Some of them are already red, and that's where you take damage. But they're small squares, and they're totally random, and they change all throughout the match. So in one, you could land in the safe zone, and in the next circle, the next timer, those might turn yellow or red, and then they turn back to safe. So it kind of creates this really random spread of direction to where you go throughout the map. I found that very cool and very unique and kind of a different spin on how the Battle Royale system funnels players towards the center. One thing that I didn't like necessarily is I think that the timers are too long. In the early game, it felt really good because it gave you time to gear up and kind of get your bearings a little bit. But as the game moved on into mid and late game, I didn't notice that the timers actually got shorter. They felt like they were really long still, and that they were basically the same timer as you got in the beginning. That may be because of the randomness of the squares. I'm not too sure. That's something I think definitely needs a few balance passes. The games tend to feel a little more campy as you get into the higher ranks, for sure. Like in this game, I think I finished like 17th, but I got a 12th and a 7th place, and the games get really slow near the end because the timers stay really long and people just camp basically and see if somebody comes into their square because there's only a few squares left at that point. So that definitely needs to be worked at. But I think the core concept of having the little broken down squares instead of a shrinking circle the whole time is really cool. Now, I will say that when you get to the final two, and I know this because I spectated after I lost, when you get to the final two, it does transition to a continuously shrinking circle to force the last two players into a shootout, which I think is also a really, really cool thing. So let's talk about the loadout really quick. The loadout I think is cool. It's a nice mixture between PUBG and Fortnite. It's simpler in the sense of Fortnite in that it's essentially 6 items. The way that it differs is when you land, you only have 1 item for a weapon and 1 slot for a weapon and 1 slot for an item available. You have to either find or buy unlocks for the other 2 slots for each category. That gives it another interesting little twist. The one thing that I didn't like about that system is if you do find a gun and you don't have the correct ammo for that gun, you're kind of out of luck. So I think that it would help just general gameplay if they spawned the weapons preloaded with ammo, just so you could pick it up, and if you get in a gunfight, you're not just wildly swinging your weapon at someone. But I think the having to unlock your additional ammo slots is kind of cool. It's a little RNG, so sometimes it's going to suck because you're going to go entire rounds without finding anything, as I've already had happen to me. But it's something that can be worked with and perfected along the way, I believe. So those are kind of my initial takeaways on Radical Heights. Is it fun? I think so. I had a lot of fun with it. It has that addictive system of getting money and putting it in the bank that I like. The gunplay is really solid. It feels good. The speed that you move around in is good. The jumps, it's just all silly enough to be fun and serious enough to feel like a real shooter, if that makes sense. Is it something that you should play? If you're interested in Battle Royales, I definitely think you should play it. I mean, it's a free game. There's nothing to lose. The barrier of entry is 0. And if you don't like it, you can always uninstall, but you might just find that it's an interesting mix for you. I thought it was really fun. Like I said, I'm going to be playing it more for sure. It's something that I think it would be cool to do content on because it's such a unique game, and I think it's going to evolve quickly. They already patched it today. They already did a hot fix today. I don't know exactly what was in that, but they seem to be on top of this. It's one of those situations where, let's be honest, I think the longevity of the studio and the studio's survival is at stake. They need this game to go well, so I think they're going to do everything they can to make it fun and respond to what the players want, which I think is very cool, and I'm rooting for them. It's a solid game, and I'm interested in it, and I think you guys might like it too. It's a super solid indie game, and it's free, so give it a shot. Let me know what you think. If you've played it already, let me know what you think down in the comments. Thanks for watching the video, guys. If you did enjoy it, go ahead and give me a like, and consider subscribing to the channel. I cover all indie games all the time, all different kinds of indie games. So that brings me to this. I've been DanBeforeTime. You guys have been awesome, and until next time, be excellent to each other.